Okay, let's make this one snappy.
Okay.
I don't know how long we have until I fully devolve.
Fair enough.
Actually, here's something interesting. I thought about this the other day. How has we've been talking about how movies have developed over time and over different series, but how has our experience of watching movies developed over time? Like how have we developed in this year plus of us watching movies and trying to think about them critically?
Mm-hmm.
Or what would you think?
I was thinking about this the other day because I was thinking that I just think so much less about flop or bop than I did before.
Yeah.
And I am just so much more comfortable saying, like, basically whether a movie works or not than I was before about, like, I used to get really caught up in, like, zones and where it falls. And, like, I don't even know. Like, now it's just, like, really simple. Like, and I also feel like it casts less of a shadow on the conversation than it used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. What were you thinking about in regards to it?
Well, I was thinking that honestly, I have neither progressed nor regressed, but rather just like my ideas and my placement on the scale of critical thought towards absolute, just like nonsense, emotion first, whatever. I've just bounced around, frankly. I'm completely inconsistent. And I don't think I've gotten better at watching movies or thinking about movies. I have just watched way more movies than anyone ever should. Like, so many of them have been bad that it's kind of like my standard is really low now. So it's like honestly surprising when I don't like a movie these days.
I feel like you're much less likely to give a flop to a movie.
Yeah.
Than I am. These days, at least.
Yeah. The bar is extremely low right now.
I definitely know those periods. I go through periods where I feel like I'm watching too many movies. I also go through periods where I watch a lot of movies and feel good about it. But like, especially here at the end of the year, I'm kind of doing the like manic watch every like Oscar buzz acclaimed movie that I haven't seen. Yeah. To try and like consider for my end of the year list.
I haven't even caught up on Oscar winners from last year. It's
just those feelings, like when you finish watching a movie and you think like, I should watch less movies. Or you think like I should do something else with my life. But then a lot of times you see when you see something really great, it's like such an exciting feeling. Okay, here's an actual thought about this. I've been more aware this last year of the initial viewing of a movie not necessarily being an indication of whether something is going to stick with me or not. Like right after I watch a movie, I don't really know. Like there have been some movies I loved watching that I just don't think about it all ever again. And some movies that I'm iffy on in the moment where like actually my appreciation grows so much in time. And maybe on a second viewing, I like them more. So something I've tried to do with the podcast is like when we did X-Men, we used to watch them literally minutes before recording. Yeah. And I have, on Warren's advice, starting with Denny, tried to watch all of these like a couple days before we have to talk about them to just like sit with them for a minute. But you do lose something. You do lose like immediate reactions and maybe some fine details. But
well, should we get into our ranking for McCullah and Smith?
Well, let's do it. What's your ranking, Emmett?
Okay. I'm going to go Legally Blonde, number 1. She's the Man, number 2. 10 Things I Hate About You, a close number 3.
Wow.
I think that Legally Blonde is like the perfect one. I think that She's the Man is trying for more, but some of the issues that we talked about and like some of the stuff that doesn't age as well with the gender stuff at the end like kind of sinks it a little bit for me. I think that 10 Things I Hate About You is still like holds up pretty wonderfully. That so it and She's the Man are just like right there, 2 and 3 together. Then like a little ways down for me, you've got Ella Enchanted, which I think is fun, but so much lighter and so much more nonsensical than those other 3 that it like it doesn't hold. It just like doesn't hold as much weight for me.
Hmm.
And then well below that would be House Bunny, and then like so far below the House Bunny that it's not in the same zip code. I would put The Ugly Truth.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know you loved Legally Blonde so much. I thought 10 Things was going to be your number one.
Yeah, I think Legally Blonde just is it's like so sweet. It's so much fun. Yeah, there's just something wonderful about the whole thing that I really like. How about you?
Okay, I'm ready with my list, but I'm not ready to get dragged on the internet for it. So, sorry. Sorry about this. I would go number 6, The Ugly Truth.
Uh-huh.
Far above that, number 5, The House Bunny.
Uh-huh.
Far above that,
Uh-huh.
number 4, Legally Blonde.
Oh, wow.
Number 3, Ella Enchanted. Number 2, She's the Man. A little bit above that, number 1, 10 Things I Hate About You.
Mm.
Those top 4, both of our top 4, are also good, and I know I'll hold like a special place in a lot of people's heart. So I would not be surprised by like anyone's ranking of those 4.
Yeah.
And I think they're all pretty close in quality. But I do think 10 Things, in my opinion, is like their masterpiece. I just think it's the one where it has the best leading performances. It has the best supporting performances. It has the best jokes. It is simpler than She's the Man. I agree that She's the Man is like reaching for a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot I love about that movie. That was my number 2. And both of our number 2, actually. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it quite makes it to the heights of 10 Things.
10 Things does have a magical leading couple.
That's mainly what I like about it. Like, their chemistry is just so good. And that would be good in any movie, right? Like, any movie with that magnetic chemistry at the top would be amazing. But then, like, you think about, okay, well, what else is in the movie? Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the kid from The Santa Claus being hilarious, Michael Krumholtz. Or David Krumholtz, I forget what his name is.
The guy who's through the house that they put through the party at. Somebody Lowenstein.
That must be Nigel with the brie. Yeah.
Him.
Allison Janney writing smutty fan fiction at school.
Yeah.
The soundtrack. I don't know. I love it. And I don't really have nostalgia for any of these movies. So that's how they all struck me rewatching them for this. I like Legally Blonde, but I think I was really thrown by the end of it and less impressed with the directing and the supporting cast than some of the other movies. Mm-hmm. I actually think She's the Man is the only one that's well directed of any of them. Like, I think the effects of Ella Enchanted are really amazing and wonderful and should be talked about more. There are some cool shots in 10 Things I Hate About You. But, like, in terms of, like, a movie that feels exciting and, like, the director is actually actively doing something, I think She's the Man is the only of. House Bunny has a directorial style, but that style is fit the camera as close on every character's butt as possible. So
it was just Adam Sandler, the producer, wearing a GoPro around set.
Oh, wait, can I actually say I realized I didn't talk about my favorite joke from the House Bunny on the episode, which is at her birthday party. Is silently never spoken about. We're just seeing all of her fun birthday party, and she goes to blow out the candles on this tall cake, and Shaq comes in behind her and just lifts her up with a ballet lift, and she blows out the candles. And he doesn't have a line of dialogue. They never say it's Shaq. No one is like, Shaq's at this party. He's just there.
That's funny. Like, if we're tracking the progression, if we're tracking like where they started, where they went, what is the story of McCullah and Smith?
I mean, it sucks because, in my opinion, they start with their best movie and end with their worst movie.
Yeah,
which is never really what you want to see.
No. Yeah, I mean, they certainly, those first 4 just like by far and away so much better than the last 2.
Yeah.
And not just better, but also seem like more unique, more like they individually have something that they're saying in each one. I would like kind of discount Ella Enchanted from that a little bit, but the other three like that we agree on of being really good, or like each seems so specific and like no one else could have written them.
I think Ella Enchanted has that a little bit. I think the message of like not listening to what men and other people tell you to do when you're a little girl is pretty instructive. Yeah, I don't know. Also, I think in a lot of them, there's like weird structure. Like a lot of these movies have the thing where like it's all over the map and then the plot kind of happens in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Even the good ones.
Yeah.
Like Legally Blonde is like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
the whole thing with the murder and with the creepy professor is all in the last 20.
But I don't know. How do you see their progression across these 6?
I would like to be able to blame it on commodification. You know, that like that's the reason why it falls off so much, is because they like try to go bigger. They like try to be more appealing to a wider studio. I mean, like, there is nothing associated with the Riot Girl movement about the last 2 movies. You know, something that we talked about extensively for 10 Things I Hate About You.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like there's any connection to that, hardly at all. Is that like a societal thing where in the 90s, like, it was fun to like have a punk attitude towards the establishment, and that meant, and then by 2010 ish we're all conformists, and like I don't know, it's a depressing progression. It's not good. It makes me feel like, and I mean, like, I do feel like this, that movies homogenized over the course of 2000 to 2010. Things got blander for a long time. They got worse. And as our country kind of like tried to kid itself that it was past a lot of the problems that we were dealing with in the 90s, and we were like, yes, we talked about that in the 90s, so obviously we have solved those problems. And there was this brief period between like 2008 and 2016 where white America was allowed to fool itself into believing that it was past a lot of those problems. And now it's kind of like all of that rings hollow. I don't know. It feels like there's a cultural emptiness at the heart of those last 2 movies that I think is real. I mean, I think that is a real thing. And I think we've talked about other movies from that time period too. And they're all kind of like that. They all seem to be reflecting that. This last movie, I mean, I'm not joking when I say this last, the Ugly Truth really did, like, there were other things going on, certainly, but it sent me into a tailspin, and I was like, maybe we're not worth it.
Oh God.
Like, maybe,
that bad.
Yeah, like maybe people aren't worth it. You know, if this is the kind of movie that can make that much money, maybe people aren't worth like trying to make good art for. I mean, it's really that bad.
Right. It is really bad.
I don't know.
But it is Christmas Eve, so people are worth making good art for, I will say. But no, I totally hear what you're saying. Something that made me think about is that I think a lot of these movies are kind of just looking at different types of women who are often made fun of and saying, like, they are valuable and they can be loved. Like, that is, I would say, a very simplistic message, but I think that's what a lot of them are doing. Like punk hardcore girls can be loved. Girly girls are valuable. Tomboys, girls who say yes to everything. Girls who are very sexy and wear revealing clothing and are naked in Playboy. Girls who are control freaks and bossy and in positions of power. It's kind of looking at 6 archetypes, all of which I feel like American society is not kind to.
Sure.
And saying, like, hey, these can be good people. You should give them a chance and you should love them. Because I think almost all of these movies have some element of a character changing themselves in order to be loved and appreciated, and then kind of reverting back to themselves in order to like actually get that at the end. That doesn't really happen in Legally Blonde, and in House Bunny it's Emma Stone's character who does that rather than Anna Faris.
Well, they both do it. Because Anna Faris has that scene where she pretends to like...
Yeah, to like save the whales or whatever.
Yeah. That idea of like appearance versus like who you are like what category you're immediately placed into versus like being a full human being with like all of the good and all of the bad that comes with that is a really interesting thing that I think they're doing across all of them. I wish that the last two movies did that better, because I agree that the last two movies are kind of spiritually similar in that way to the other ones, but dissimilar in almost every other way that they're handled.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of it.
Well, let me ask you this in terms of like the success of each of these, because most of them are adaptations. So do you think that adapting something like gives you more room to play as a writer?
Well, I think inherently that structure and boundaries gives you more room to play as an artist, regardless of your field. Like the tighter you make your limitations, the more creative you have to be within those limitations. So I think that like the challenge of adapting something for a modern audience is really exciting. Their two most successful as writers are probably 10 Things I Hate About You and She's the Man. Legally Blonde, I think is like a fun overall movie to watch, but I think probably as writers, the best writing is in those two.
Reese's performance is such a big part of
exactly. And so like that, her and
Jennifer Coolidge.
Yeah, Jennifer Coolidge is so good. That's really the part that makes that movie stand out for me, is all of her stuff, which is so incidental to the plot, but just so wonderful. But what I would say is like the challenge of adapting, especially something as old as a Shakespeare play, and something as like you've seen so many adaptations of it already, or so many versions of it already. There's such an imperative to make it yours that I think is less true of Ella Enchanted and Legally Blonde, because you are adapting something that has... Ella Enchanted is a book that is an adaptation of Cinderella, but really they're adapting the book, not the Cinderella story itself, right? So they're adapting something that has only really been done once before with that. And so the limitations are less, if that makes sense in some way. The way that like 10 Things I Hate About You is in conversation with every production ever of Taming of the Shrew. Right. In some way, you know?
Yeah.
And same with She's the Man.
I think, I just agree with you. I think that when you have those boundaries, it becomes almost more about what are you bringing to the table than like, what is the story of this, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it isn't like, what's the story of Taming of the Shrew? It's what are you doing with it? And I think sometimes as a writer, that helps you also like focus in on what your strengths are and what you're interested in. And so I definitely get that. Let me ask you, Emmett, if it was you in the writing directing seat rather than McCullah and Smith, what Shakespeare play would you make a modern language adaptation set in a high school?
I've thought extensively about this. My actual idea is that I would like do a TV series set in a high school that incorporated all of the plays, like incorporated characters from all of the plays. All of the plots would kind of be intertwining and running at cross purposes with each other. You think of like the kings and the older generations as being the teachers. You think of the younger people as being the students, and like there'd be all sorts of stuff going on.
Wow.
I think it would be like at least a 2-season arc of resolving at least like the big 12 or whatever. The big ones that people think about and do often. But if I was going to do it, I think Measure for Measure. I really think that there's something about that play. You know, it's about workplace sexual harassment in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about an unfair justice system that's obsessed with incarceration, obsessed with the death penalty. It's about a conservative religious figure rising to power and trying to punish women and like the sexually deviant. There's like a lot there that I am really interested in, I think resonates, and I think could work really well in a high school setting. Yeah, I think that would be it. It's a play I've been obsessed with since 2016. So how about you? What?
Well, in thinking about this, I realized that I did already do it with Hamlet.
Yeah.
With my play Hamlet at home. But that's at a college. So for a high school film, I think it would be really fun to be Macbeth.
Mm-hmm.
Although I worry that it would just be Heathers. But like high schoolers killing each other and like having to keep killing more and more of their friends in order to like cover up the lie, I think would be interesting.
Yeah.
I also like Much Ado a lot, which I know has kind of been done on screen more than any of the other comedies. But I think that would fit in most with like the 10 Things I Hate About You style.
Yeah.
And it's fun, just like this concept of like, we are the only love gods, like a bunch of high schoolers playing matchmakers and trying to hook each other up. And you've got that main confrontational relationship still with like the two people who hate each other, but have banter.
And you've also got a really interesting thing about being like, I mean, like a lot of what that play hinges on is basically slut shaming. Mm-hmm. So like that being an aspect and like having a sex positive take on that play could be really nice too.
Yeah, you'd have to clean it up like they clean up Taming of the Shrew, but you could do it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask. This is my last question about McCullah and Smith. Mm-hmm. And listen to our Ugly Truth episode for more about what they've been doing and what we want to see from them. Mm-hmm. But let me ask, we talked a lot about like how they really brought a lot out of their leading ladies and like writing roles that people would not expect from them and that the actresses really shined in. Is there an actor today who you think you would like to see get a McCullah and Smith script?
It's Zendaya.
That's a
get an actual movie.
That is a good call.
You know, she had Euphoria, so that's great. But I think there could be some other stuff there.
And also Euphoria sucks.
You know that I love old Saoirse Ronan, but I feel like she has been used well and fully. I mean, obviously, like Florence Pugh, that's one. But again, I think she's doing stuff that like expresses her full range. I don't think being in 5 minutes of Dune expresses all of what Zendaya could bring to us. So
she's really good as MJ in the Spider-Man movies, but that is also like 20 minutes of screen time per movie, basically. I think in terms of a kid, I've recently seen Sadie Sink pop up in a lot of stuff from Stranger Things.
Is that the red-haired girl from Stranger Things who was in the Taylor Swift video?
Yeah, and she was in Fear Street. And she was good in both of those, but in both of them it was weird because, like, 2 years ago we saw her play a 12-year-old, and now she's playing, like, a 19-year-old in things.
Yeah.
But I feel like she has a very unique attitude. An older actress, and by older I mean 30s, but I feel like Elizabeth Olsen is someone who is not exactly getting the stuff, because I feel like she is really good in all of the MCU movies, which is like not to be discarded because she's in like 10 of them or something.
Right.
Including WandaVision. And I think you can totally see that she has like a lot of strengths that aren't always being fully utilized. I'd like to see someone come around and give her like an actual meaty leading role. Any final thought about McCullah and Smith?
I just hope that soon we get a redemption arc from them. They're good writers. We're in an era again where good writers can have control, especially if they were doing something that wasn't straight up just like studio raunch comedy. They could do something that was like legit good.
A lot of times I feel like we tend to think of directors as the first creative input on a movie, or the primary, rather, creative input on a movie, and the writer as like second. But I think in all of these movies, like, they are the voice. Yeah. Like, these are McCullah and Smith movies, and I think it's not for nothing that like most of them are with first-time directors or TV directors who didn't really do much else.
Yeah.
But like, their writing is what came to the forefront.
For sure. Maybe they should direct one.
Kirsten just show ran a TV show for 2 seasons, so
yeah,
they know how to do it.
Yeah. I feel like get these dumb guys out of the way and let them run the show.
I'd like to see it.
Well, cool. Do you want to announce what we're doing next before Taika?
Next week on Tuesday is our holiday special. Now, this year we are actually doing 2 holiday specials. So the first one, our last episode of 2021, my favorite episode of the year, our favorite movies of 2021. Then the week after, our first episode of 2022, which feels hard to believe, is going to be a holiday special focused on the movies we watched in 2021 that did not come out that year. The older movies we caught in 2021, primarily focusing on some horror movies. Emmett, you want to talk about that?
Because I have been part of this podcast, I have become sick, and the way that I watch films now is by binging all of them, whether or not I'm watching them for this podcast. So right as we were watching the Scream movies, I got interested in the older slasher films that kind of inspired and that Scream was like in reference to and also making fun of. So I watched the original Halloween, and then I got on a Nightmare on Elm Street kick, which then led me to a Friday the 13th kick, because of course, as the diligent listener will know, they come together as one meta universe in the film Freddy versus Jason.
So I'm genuinely excited. I have certainly noticed throughout the McCullah and Smith movies as you've gone. Ella Enchanted really reminded me of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 16, The Dream Succubus. Every episode. So I'm excited to hear what it's all about.
Yeah. Basically, it's too many movies for us to have covered on this podcast. So we're just going to cover all of them in one mega episode.
So that's the next 2 weeks. Last week of the year, first week of the new year, 2 holiday specials. And then you already know what series is next because you picked it. We didn't pick it. Picked by our listeners, the winner of Bumtober, starting Tuesday, January 11th, 111. We're talking Taika.
Woo-hoo-hoo! Very exciting. Yeah, I'm excited about all of it. I like the Taika movies that I've seen. I think they're funny. I think they're fun. Yeah, just really excited to be moving into year 2 of this. Everything to come. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know it often sounds like we do this just for our own gratification, but we really do it for you, the listener. So thank you. Without you, it wouldn't be happening, or it would be happening, but it would just be happening in the void. So thank you. And Merry Christmas. May the Krampus not get you this night. May the Grinch return all your presents. May Scrooge have his redemption arc and bless you and your syphilitic children. And truly, on this frostiest of nights, stay frosted. Cinema Bums is a production of DKG Podcasts. It is created and produced by Wade Lawrence Holloman and me, Emmett Temple. Wade also edits and mixes the podcast. Our theme music is by Zane Holloman, who you can find on Bandcamp, and our show art is by Autumn Beckner. Our social media is managed by Laura Bennett. If you like what you hear, please tell all your friends and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, the 2 best ways to spread the word about our work. You can also follow us on Instagram at cinemabums or email us at cinemabumspod@gmail.com. Don't flake on us. We'll be back next week.